What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Turn the Jets podcast. I'm your host, Will Parkinson, at Will Parkinson on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Mike does our intros on our All 32 pod, which we'll be recording right after this. We're doing a full AFC East preview, so make sure you guys are tuned into that. Mike, we are past cutdown day. We are past waiver wire day. How we doing? How we feeling? Jacoby Brissett's the starting quarterback. Lot to discuss on our pod on that.
Yeah, for sure. A little dizzy, a little tired at this point. I think everybody in the football world, including the teams that we cover, are probably looking forward to having a couple days away and not thinking too much about what's happening. But yeah, we're good. We're getting so close. It's like this is the last little take a deep breath, because then once we're in it for till January, and some teams will be in it until February.
Yeah, hopefully one of our teams will be until February.
I don't think it's going to be the one that's in my backyard.
I have a hard time believing the Jacoby Brissett-led Patriots will be competing for a Super Bowl. That said, I guess kind of the only breaking news really of today from a Jets perspective, Mike Williams will be ready to go week one. Again, his availability in terms of how many reps he's going to play is TBD. But, I want to kind of get your thoughts on that. Mike Williams is a guy who obviously I think we haven't talked enough about this summer and this offseason of like, man, if Mike Williams is even anything like the player he's been the last 4 or 5 years, when he's on the field, obviously.
Yeah.
Jets have a pretty damn good number two there. What do you make of Robert Saleh mentioning Mike Williams, obviously, going to be ready again week one? Again, rep count, we'll see, but at least we'll dressed and ready to go.
Yeah, I like that he sort of pumped the brakes a little bit, like, hey, he's going to play, but like, don't really fully expect him to be Mike. And it's probably going to be a little while, right? Like, I could see this being a scenario where, we're talking about late October, November before he hits the ground like you think he is, or he becomes the player that he's been in the past when he's been healthy. But to your point, to have someone opposite Garrett Wilson like that, another presence, a big physical guy, obviously you can go up and get the football. It's a major jump from where they've been in the past. The Allen Lazards, not that Cobb played a ton outside, but that point, it's like if this player hits, if he's feeling right, then that's a massive upgrade for them. And again, I think we view the Jets through a different prism this year, even though they were 7-10 last year, and that we think they're a January football team. And again, to your point, maybe a February football team if all goes well. So I wouldn't panic about what he looks like early. Talk to me around late October, November, and if he looks like himself, then holy crap, and everybody else is healthy. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page as you. Obviously, kind of other moves. Obviously, as I talked on Badlands with Joe, kind of Monday night or Tuesday night, I guess, right before cutdown day, when I thought I got all 53 right who were going to make it. I just, I guess I missed on two in terms of Eric Watts, as one of them, and Eric Charles, guys who seemingly made the team based on guys on IR and or people who have not reported yet. Hank, wink, Hassan Reddick. Hopefully the next time I record a TOJ pod, not TOJ Talks, but TOJ pod, sounds like Reddick, from all indications, maybe be reporting Monday or Tuesday. So, reporting for week one. So we'll see. But kind of the biggest storyline, I guess, of Jets cutdown day was Jets kept 3 undrafted free agents on the defensive line. And they've had a lot of success here, obviously, in the past between waiver wire and UDFAs, especially from a defensive perspective, whether it's John Franklin Myers, a waiver claim guy, Quincy Williams, a waiver claim guy. You obviously look at a Bryce Huff, even a Tony Adams, guys who have starters or gotten paid already, let alone, even a Michael Carter on day 3. Like, the Jets have done a really good job the last couple of years of finding those guys. Braden McGregor had a really good feeling and more than an educated guess he was going to be making the roster. And really excited for him. He has a lot of Morgan Fox lookalike in terms of 91 and the tattoos and the whole thing. But again, proven winner out of Michigan, obviously, the guy we saw down in Mobile, and we were like, hey, he was really impressive. Like, what's the deal with this guy? Eric Watts, a UConn guy, much more John Franklin Myers-ish type of bigger, kind of sturdier edge in terms of that. And then, Tack McKinley obviously makes the roster. Another guy who's Jets, I think, have 7 or 8 first-round picks on, the top 15 guys who will play on that defense, which is nuts. And then lastly, Leonard Taylor, another guy from Miami who we've talked a lot about. The Jets don't have a ton of pass rush juice on the interior outside of Quinn and Williams. Not that you need, when you have a Quinn and Williams, you can get away with not having two elite guys there, but they don't have all these guys, Solomon Thomas, Javon Kinlaw, Lecky Fotu, all are 1-year deal guys. And now they get Leonard Taylor in here, who 2 years ago, was he going to be a top 50 pick, top 25, whatever it may have been?
Yeah.
Then goes undrafted, was awesome this summer. What do you just make of the Jets, keeping 3 UDFAs in a position of probably their best group outside a corner on the roster, and they're competing for a Super Bowl? Like, that was just not an easy roster for them to make, and maybe Hassan Reddick's absence actually helped these guys a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it speaks to some of the talent that you just mentioned. I mean, Taylor was even I think even into the fall, we were still sort of like, look, it hasn't been like you thought it was going to be, but there's just so much there that he could be someone who's a mid-second round pick, or, hey, who knows if he really blows people away during the off-season portion of this leading up to combine and stuff, that maybe he does get that boost, because from a physical talent standpoint, he does have some serious juice. So, I look at that and they say, we're good. We have really talented people. Why not take a shot on someone who is maybe a little raw, maybe a little bit undisciplined, but as you mentioned, had a great summer and has an opportunity that could be a real find. McGregor, I like the player. Surprised that that's sort of the way it went for him this spring. And as you mentioned, at the Senior Bowl, you're like, this kid's a player. He belongs in the league. And so it just, in essence, rich get richer at that spot. And some of it allows you, because you're so talented, to just say, all right, well, look, we could take somebody who's a little safer maybe, well, we could go find that guy at a waiver wire. We could go make a trade for a 6th-round pick at the deadline if we don't like how things are going, to get a player like that can just be, okay, if we have to, he's there. In this, you're thinking about long-term. We can develop 1 or 2 of these guys, and you hit on that going forward. That's a massive home run for Joe Douglas in terms of, roster building and things that he can put on his resume. So I like it. It's funny. There's so many different ways to get to the league, but there's been a lot of good football players who didn't get drafted, or were drafted late, or got kicked around a little bit. And that's why I look at someone like McKinley and say, maybe he didn't deserve to go as high as he did. Then there were a lot of expectations on him, and he kind of wilted under it, right? I think there was a lot on him, and he wasn't that player, or maybe ready to handle it. Now he comes here, and it's like, you're not going to play a lot, or you're going to play, we have a specific role in mind for you. Go do it. And, oh, by the way, Quinn Williams is going to command a double team. And if Reddick's out in the field, he might command a double. You just start talking about down the line. You're the forgotten guy. You're going to get one-on-one matchups, and he is got enough physical skill to win some of those things. So I like the sort of profile there, and the risk that they take.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think this is a division where, in order to win this division, you're going to have to hit the quarterback a lot. Obviously, we know in Buffalo, what Josh Allen is. He's unbelievable. And again, we'll talk about this more. Shameless plug. Me and Mike do a pod twice a week on the entire league. We are previewing the AFC East in about 30 minutes here. So please download, subscribe that podcast if you like anything that we do. We'd greatly appreciate it.
Pretty please.
In terms of the other moves, they pick up Brendan Bates yesterday. The Jets had 1 waiver claim. He's a guy who, UDFA, again, shocking theme here. A guy from Kentucky, 6-year senior, didn't catch a lot of balls in college. 6'3", 6'4", 250, prototypical tight end size. Had an awesome preseason with the Bears. Was the highest graded tight end by Pro Football Focus. Obviously, profiles more as kind of that inline blocker, but 6 catches for 100 yards. Made some nice plays. Again, I don't want to overshoot this. He's going to be their tight end 3 for next month, and that's what it's kind of really going to be. But they end up, releasing Jason Brownlee, who, if he clears waivers today, then will probably be back with the Jets. I'm sure on the practice squad tomorrow. What do you make of the Jets kind of going out and claiming a tight end? They kind of build this roster off the bat with 4 running backs, 7 receivers, 10 linemen, but just 2 quarterbacks, just 2 tight ends. Are you surprised they went the route of waiver claims for a tight end, and they didn't go like a Parham or somebody like that? They went with this kind of 24-year-old rookie who we don't really know too much about other than Hard Knocks.
Yeah, maybe. So less confident about this in terms of why they would do it. But to me, again, when you start to look at the age of your offense and sort of some of the players that you're relying on, let's try to infuse a little bit of youth. Who knows? Also, hey, we get into a situation where we want to pound the ball down somebody's throat. As you mentioned, more of an inline guy can be physical. Can we go 3 tight ends? Is there a scenario, let's say November, December, weather starts getting crappy, Aaron's a little beat up, whatever the case may be, where you say, like, look, we're just going to ride Brees in this one. And you go a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier, a little bit stronger up front. I don't, like someone like Parham has obviously had the injury history and probably more known as a receiver than a blocker. Like, okay, fine. That's like almost like a luxury. I think I kind of like the idea of just, all right, let's try to establish a little bit of a physical identity. And again, bottom of the roster, these guys get turned over a fair amount. So, if they find a weakness somewhere else, he's probably one of the first people to go, if not the first person to go.
Yeah, the only other, I guess, news of of note, or whatever, however the stupid phrase is. Again, the 53. We'll see the roster gymnastics. I fully expect, when Reddick reports, likely Monday or Tuesday. Maybe it won't be, but I have a pretty good feeling that'll happen early next week. He'll report for Week 1. I don't think he wants to miss any more game checks. I also think that he really wants to go play football. I just think that he's wanted to get paid. The Jets have. There's been a lot of weird, like, they're talking a lot more about him. Hey, we'll negotiate as soon as you're here, but you just got to be here. And he's been training in Jersey, it looks like, and he's doing an event on the 3rd in Jersey, and they have a locker for him now. And Salah's like, yeah, he can play Week 1 still. So it's been a lot of signs pointing to him being back next week. I say all that to say, like, likely I would assume Eric Watts is the guy that'll get kind of moved through to the practice squad. I thought he was good this summer. I don't think he was as good as McGregor, Tack, and or Leonard Taylor. So I just think that makes the most sense. There was a little bit of weird Lewis scene stuff yesterday where he got reported he was going to be joining the Jets practice squad with the intention to activate him. He ends up going to Buffalo. I thought the move made sense from it's just a pure dart throw. Guy's been hurt a ton. He played a lot this preseason, clearly fell out of favor there. I loved him coming out of college. I thought he was one of the best players in that Georgia defense. The injury was disgusting. I don't know if he'll ever be the same player, and I hope for his sake he is, because that was pretty gnarly. Yeah. It makes a lot more sense for him to go to Buffalo. Buffalo's safety room is depleted, and no disrespect to Damar Hamlin in any way, but if Damar Hamlin's a starting safety for you, you're going to struggle on defense. So I just would say, like, it made sense. I know I was excited about the potential of a guy that, like, the Jets have reclamated a lot of these guys. We just saw Takk McKinley, who you mentioned, but, like, you just think of a Quincy Williams, a John Franklin Myers, waiver wire guys, draft picks that didn't live up to JFM was a 4th-round pick. But all that said, did you make anything of the scene thing? Was that weird to you at all?
No, I think it was just a smart business decision, because I think, like you said, he looks at that room and says, obviously Damar's been a great story. The comeback is remarkable. But even before that happened, he was a part-time player, and the times that he did have to play a lot, he kind of got exposed. So, from that perspective, Bishop, who we both like, Cole Bishop was probably tracking to start, got hurt, had to miss multiple weeks. He's still, I believe, in a red non-contact jersey, so it doesn't look like he's going to be ready, or if he is ready for Week 1, it's going to be in sort of a limited role because he's just been on the sideline for too long. So, you got an opportunity there. And we know Sean's done a really nice job. Bobby Babich is going to call the plays, the defensive coordinator, but Sean's done a really nice job with that position, empowering those guys, Micah and Jordan, for all those years, right? So why not, if you're him, say, all right, there's a good track record there. Let's take a shot, and it's possible that my path to a starting role or significant playing time is a little bit faster than, say, with the defense that's pretty loaded like the Jets.
Yeah, last two things here. I want to cover one thing on the Niners, and then more so Jordan Travis. As I mentioned, this was the reason I wanted the Jets to draft Jordan Travis, dating back to, like, I don't know, I started talking about it maybe in March, February, whatever it was. The whole reason I thought he made the most sense was veteran backup. I thought, we talked a lot about, you were on the show back right before free agency, and we talked Brissett, Tannehill, Tyrod, those names, because we thought you're going to go and draft somebody. And Jordan Travis, again, I don't know what he's going to be after this injury. I don't think anyone really does.
Right.
But he's kind of the perfect guy for the Jets quarterback room right now. He has no expectation to do anything this year, let alone maybe even next year. He's going to be in a room with two of the smartest football dudes you could possibly be around from a quarterback's position right now for an entire year, where he's just rehabbing, working out at the facility. Hopefully he's practicing at the end of the year. I think, honestly, if the Jets were doing anything like rushing him at all, I thought it was a mistake. Like, this is a guy who, like, not only should redshirt, I don't even know if like how much you're doing with him next year. Maybe he's practicing in OTAs if you're lucky, but I don't know. Isn't that kind of the plan? And now you look at Michael Pratt, who was the other name that the Jets scattered quite heavily during the process, was so bad during the preseason. The Packers are like, we got to go get Malik Willis for a draft pick. Like
Yeah.
that's. Did you make anything of the Travis stuff? I thought that was not a news, really. I guess, but to me, this is like the smartest possible play for the Jets, developing something at the position.
I'm pretty certain that you and I sat there in Mobile on one of those aluminum benches watching practice, and we talked about Jordan Travis, and you talked about how, boy, wouldn't he make a lot of sense with the Jets just based on Aaron and like, it's not for now. You're not worried about for now, and now to your point, he can just absorb and watch Aaron do his business, sort of like figure that whole thing out from behind the scenes as he continues to work. And again, who knows what he's going to be? Obviously, he was a damn good athlete. And does that sap him with some of the athleticism? I don't know. But, we talk about, and we see it across the league, you get drafted high at quarterback, you're playing, or okay, Drake May's not starting, but I'd be shocked if we don't see Drake May sometime in October, right? So this is a different thing where maybe not necessarily by choice, you're marinating. And that can be a really good thing. Jordan Love marinated for 3 years. A lot of people weren't even sure when you saw him. They're like, I don't know that he's the guy. And they were like, no, steadfast. We believe in him. He's doing great work behind the scenes. He's doing great work in practice. And when it finally becomes his team, I mean, we saw second half of the year, the growth and obviously the big contract. So I'm not predicting those sorts of things for Jordan Travis, but there is a lot to be said for being able to sit back and learn with no pressure on you whatsoever, and to learn from, as you mentioned, some really smart guys who know a lot about football and how to play the quarterback position. So it's kind of a cool spot to be in. If you have to go through what he's going through, it's a pretty good scenario to be in.
Yeah, no. Last thing here, and again, I'll have more on Saturday's episode. We'll start to get a previous 49ers game. And again, me and Mike shamelessly are going to be talking a lot more Jets on the All 32 pod. So if you want to get more in depth on just a season preview, we'll talk about that. Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, 3 of their 6 best players, 5 best players. I'll start with McCaffrey. He's still not fully practicing. I expect him to play and be almost full go in 10 days' time from now. That said, he's had calves before, and they don't heal for whatever. He's such a good athlete. They don't heal for him the way they've healed for other guys. So I don't know how much, if they take a little bit off his plate week 1. We'll see there. The Trent Williams Ayuk thing, I think, is far more dire than even Chase and Reddick. I say that because Chase is going to get figured out here. It's a classic game of like if, when, not if. I think Reddick is going to report next week, and I think he's going to get a sweetener deal or even maybe a mini extension. We'll see, but he's going to play this year, and he's going to be awesome. Trent Williams, by all accounts, wants to get like paid and has not reported yet, and like doesn't intend on reporting. And as a lineman, I'm sure he could go and show up in 20 years and still play left tackle at an elite level. That's just who he is. But they're $36 million over the cap. It could be manipulated the whole 9 yards. I get it, but Purdy without him is not the same player. And lastly, Ayuk. John Lynch, not so subtly, was like, "You're gonna have to show up and play here, buddy." Like pretty intensely. John doesn't say a lot publicly. I mean, I know he says a lot behind the scenes and whatever, but he didn't say a lot publicly. And then Ayuk, who was supposed to practice today, said, "No, I'm good, man. Like, I'm not showing up." So what are we doing here? Because are these guys going to play week 1? This is a pretty important game, I think, for the Jets, almost more than the Niners. And if they don't have those guys, I think the Jets are in a much better position to go steal one in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'll start with Ayuk because I think it's gotten to the point, and talking to people out in San Francisco, talking to some people out in the league, it's like it's not always been consistent about what he wants, and that's a little messed up. Like you're taking a stance, and you're not going to show up. You're under contract, but you're not going to show up. You're going to hold out. You want this deal that puts you in the same category as Justin Jefferson and now CeeDee Lamb and Jamar when that eventually happens. You're not that player. I really like the player. I think he's a top 10 receiver. I think he helps change their offense because he's the guy that when Kyle's great scheme's not working, just freaking get it to Ayuk. He's going to win on the backside of coverage or whatever. We're going to move him. He's going to get open versus man-to-man, and there's our completion, and we move the chains and keep things rolling. But you start to wonder, like, where his head's at when you can't properly communicate, when you're constantly going on social media and taking shots at the team or casting aspersions or what are you talking about? Or they laid their message out. It's like, dude, just shut up. Just shut up. You know, you had a chance to be traded. You could have gone to New England. If, by all reports, average annual value somewhere around $30 to $32 million, right? The deal was already approved from both sides. Hey, we'll take what you're going to give us. No, I don't want to go play in New England. So you don't want the money that you supposedly wanted because it's the wrong team. You want to go to Pittsburgh, whose quarterback situation is pretty gross, quite frankly.
Cleveland as well, awful quarterback situation.
I don't know what his end game is here. You know, I kind of thought for a while, and I guess this recent behavior is sort of moving me off it, is that he just was really, I want to get something done with San Francisco. They need to come up a little bit more. You know, I'll take 28 million or whatever the number is that he's looking for. But now he continues to dick around. It's like, I don't know. I really don't know what he wants. And I think they're kind of, at this point, really frustrated. And I think that's why you heard John Lynch say what he had to say. Dude, you're under contract. Get your ass in here and let's play. Let's stop screwing around. Part of me wonders, too, if you're going to get to the point now where, especially next week, if it's continuing to do this, they say, you're not showing up. We're not allowing the hold in anymore. Like, you're an official hold out. Here comes the fines, and let's do it. For Williams, the one thing I agree with you that he's such a gifted guy that, like, he probably could show up on Friday and play on Sunday and still be damn good. But, like, he is older. He has had his share of injuries, and it's like, there's got to be a little bit of a ramp-up period, maybe at this age. So, I mean, I kind of feel that way about, like, Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb and all these things. Like, I don't think you just waltz out onto the field and your hamstrings are going to feel fine. You haven't played football. You haven't practiced football, and that's a whole different game than just running in shorts and a T-shirt, you know, whatever. Even if you're a receiver and you're making cuts and doing all those things, it's not the same. So, yeah, I think they're starting to get to a point where it's like, what are you doing? And both of those guys, particularly Williams, I mean, Williams especially, has them over a barrel because there is no one-for-one replacement. There is nobody on your roster that can even come close to duplicating how dominant he is. He has been the best left tackle in football for how long? 10 years now? Like, and he's still that guy. And so I understand why he looks at some of the other contracts and says, yeah, I'm way better than that guy. You got to pay me. Same point, like, okay, well, here we go. This continues to slog their season down a little bit. And it's not like that's I don't know. They've gone through a lot. I think you mentioned it when we did a preview on the All 32 pod about, like, get there and you don't win. That's twice now they've gotten it. Yeah, right. It's like, eventually that takes its toll on you. It's also a lot of football games you're playing during the course of the season. So, yeah, that's not a great place to be. You know, if you're Kyle Shanahan, you got to start I'm sure he's very antsy at this point.
Yeah. Last thing here, there's been a bunch of reports. You know, The Athletic had a report today talking about each organization, and the one quote about the Jets, and one agent anonymously said the Jets are dysfunctional because Rodgers is selfish and went to Egypt. I guess from an outside point of view, and we'll finish with this, and then we'll head over to our pod, and I'll get this up. Is this just Jets for clicks? It's New York. It's a big market. The fan base is passionate. And we know if we publish stuff about the Jets haven't won in a while, so let's make fun of it. Like, from your point of view, obviously, again, you've covered the Jets. You've been around that building a lot. Like, what do you make of – there's just been all offseason. It's been a lot of, like, you listen to any people, colleagues of both of ours, that, like, hey, the Jets are awesome. I'd pick them to win 12 games, but they're the Jets. Like, what do you make of all that kind of noise, I guess?
Yeah, in part, it's past history, right? It's just one misstep after another. When you think it's going to be good, like last year, you know, Aaron blows out his Achilles in 4 days, and then you have the dysfunction with Zach, and you have the carping back and forth, and, you know, Aaron with his weekly media appearance on McAfee's got to talk about, you know, it's too much talking, and yet he's the one who does a lot of talking. So it's a lot of times when I think when they do those sort of polls or whatever, surveys, if you will, like, how much does this guy have to deal with the Jets? Like, does he have one client there? Does he have 10? Like, where's it coming from? Did he have one client 3 years ago and Joe Douglas gave him a backhand and didn't give him what he wanted? Like, I don't know. A lot of times I feel like there's axes to grind. I know when I do my stuff, like, I'll have something this week on Boston Sports Journal just about sort of the outside view looking in on the Patriots. These are people I've known for a long time. And these are people that I know, like, when I I've talked to them for a long time, for some 15 years, some 10 years, some 5 years, but like I have this background and history and like know like, oh, this scout that I talked to has scouted like, 25 Patriots games in the last 2 years, like in person. Like you start going through all this thing, you're like, so if he says something to me, I know, hey, were you at the Redskins, excuse me, were you at the Commanders game the other day? Yeah, I was at the game. What did you think? Blah, 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 blah. He spits it out to me. I'm like, I know he was there. I know he watched the game. Like that carries a lot more value than, I'm sure you do too. I get some texts from agents or scouts or whatever, guys in the front office, and it's like, oh, they look like a mess. And you're like, well, did you see no, like so it's great from they're picking off headlines on Twitter or whatever, and they just automatically make a determination. So I was actually joking because I think someone told me, I didn't see the thing. Someone told me that the Patriots one was Elliott Wolf is very fair, easy to deal with, and I'm like, well, of course an agent's going to say that. The guy just re-signed every freaking player on the team that went 4-13 last year. But Matthew Judon, he was giving out money left and right? Like he was going to give Ayuk $32 million a year or whatever. Of course, those guys are going to say that. Like, hey, my client got paid. It was great. All these other guys got paid. Everybody's high-fiving each other. The agents, man, I made that much money off the Patriots. Like, you just got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to win football games. And
yes, sir.
People stop making fun of you. The Bengals were the laughing stock of the NFL for how long? And they started to win games, and now they get like probably more respect than they're even really needed. Mike, appreciate it. We're going to hop over to our pod. We'll get this out again. All 32 pod will be doing the AFC's breakdown. I'll be back Saturday, and we will be, 3-4 pods on Jets Niners. We'll get rolling here. If anything breaks, obviously, we'll hop on. But appreciate everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you guys later this week.
Yeah.